Let's talk sound. When you give it some, it sounds like a jet engine. But it's also our quietest. When you're just cruising on this board, it just sounds effortless. It's silent.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the eSkate Chat podcast with Evolve.
Are we going to use the technology from what's on the Hayden series? It's changing that whole final drive ratio.
Surfing this endless wave through Tokyo.
Electric skateboarding is like breaking through.
Every time I wanted to drink, I would step on this board.
I heard somebody say Hayden.
100%.
We'd love to build our own specialized eSkate track. I mean, the amount of thought that went into that.
I want to talk about how it affected the riders.
So I went skating with Tony Hawk.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Really?
There's a whole new product line.
I've done things I never thought I'd be able to do because of electric skateboarding.
Every time we bring out a new board, it seems like miles and a lot of time in the making. Now, we've just released the Diablo, which is our biggest, fastest, the most of everything, the most range, the most smarts, the most crazy. And it's because riders just wanted more and more and more.
Yes.
What on earth possessed you to put a beast like this under people's feet?
I guess it first started with the shits and giggles stuff that we do internally here. And, you know, this has been happening over a number of years now with some older staff members. And we always used to just laugh at ourselves when we used to test these boards. And it was just like, oh, my God, imagine if we brought this out. And at the end of the day, like, the eSkate industry has definitely changed over a few years. And you know, riders are always saying, oh, they want more of this or more of that. And then we brought the Gremlin out, and that was kind of our more powerful race board style that was dressed as the Hayden. And you know, seeing people ride that and then seeing the sort of feedback that we saw from it. And it was like, whoa, people actually want this. So we thought maybe we can make a more refined version of that and release it to the market. And we're just trying to help our customers out. They keep telling us, I want to go a bit faster. I want to go a little bit further. Or I wish it had a little bit more acceleration. And we listen to all those comments. At the end of the day, we've been doing this a long time and nothing falls on deaf ears, that's for sure. And we thought, let's do this. Why not? That's it, pretty much.
Yeah, so it really did start with the Gremlin. Well, kind of. We've always built crazy boards, but the Gremlin was the closest board we built to this.
Yes, yeah, and the Gremlin was definitely a very much a raw version. Like, especially when I say raw, it was more in the firmware, and you know, we removed a lot of protections on that, different BMS protections, and we allowed more current to go through it. And that was our experimental board. I would say we used many different MCs on that, and we changed components on that to allow more current capability to go through the system, and then we played around with the firmwares, and then we just left it at that. And then we kind of thought, well, maybe we can just refine this a bit further and make it more enjoyable to ride, not just balls out, you know, kick you in the arse sort of power. You know, it's got to be a good mix of, you got to have the power. For me anyway, it's always been about, it still needs to be rideable. And you still need to be able to just carve beautifully on it, but have that power there in the background if you want to use it. So that's what we did with this.
Yeah. I did the group ride in Vegas last year at eSkateCon on the Gremlin, and it did only have the top mode. It might have had eco, but it didn't have the sport mode working properly. And it's unrideable in a group ride situation like that because of how abrupt.
Comes on hard. Yeah. And, you know, like in the doco, there were shots of you and I sort of having those discussions. And I remember in the car park, and this was when the Diablo firmware was in its earliest stage, and then we're using custom mode to just refine it a bit, especially on the startup acceleration. You know, the first 2 or 3 millimeters when you first pull the accelerator in, it just needs to be, for me, I want it to be as smooth as possible, but still as you pull, then it just kicks in. But you were like, oh, no, it's all good. You know, let's just give it to it. Just give the punch. And it was like, yes, but if we just need to take the edge off it just a little bit. And so we did, and the custom mode was great for doing that because we went straight into the accelerator and we brought the accelerator curve down to about number 5, brake down to about 4, and then what a difference that made. I was like, right, this is what it should be. But then you can still go to custom mode now and turn it up to a little bit and still get that punchiness. So yeah, it's still got to be rideable. It's got to be a good balance, and I've always, first and foremost, it's not all about power. It's not all about speed. It still needs to be manageable. And at least still in Corsa mode, you can still be in that, group ride setting or in a city and dodging in and out of people and still feel comfortable and controlling and taming that power, which is good.
When people talk about what they want from a board, it's sort of the top 3 things are range, speed, and power.
Yeah.
In the order depends on the person.
Yeah.
It's often
it's
range
true.
and speed are up the top.
Yeah.
And then all 3 of those things are what we address with this board. So it's just got more. Let's talk about each one of those and sort of how that plays in with the Diablo. So first up is speed.
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest increase because we haven't punched up the speed since the Haitian got released, and that was 3 years ago. So people are very used to sitting at that, I think 42 kilometers, 26, 27 miles on AT, faster on street.
Yeah.
But we've gone all the way up to 31 miles an hour, 50 kilometers an hour on the stock setup.
On the same setup, that's right. So how did we achieve that? And that all came about through the new motor controller. At the end of the day, we moved a few components around, which essentially allowed more to go through it, more power and current. And we also played around with the back end sort of RPM settings. And so, we achieved it in 2 ways, RPM and then new componentry, which allowed just to have a more powerful motor controller, which was cool. But, that's a significant increase in speed, though, when you're talking on the stock setup, 66T, 7-inch wheel, 51 k an hour. That's fast. That's a good 10, 12 k's an hour faster than the previous Haitian, all from a motor controller change and tiny little playing around with the RPMs. We didn't do it in the motors. It was all firmware and motor controller based, which is cool.
Yeah, it's a big difference because it does seem like a lot on paper, but not that much. But if you're out commuting and you're sitting at 40 k's an hour, you on a big open pathway, you're like, okay, could probably do a little bit more. But if you're trying to do that at 50, suddenly you're like, oh, it feels heaps faster.
Yeah.
So I don't think a lot of people are going to be sitting at that top speed anymore because it is pretty fast.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty fast. And it feels great. I think where the advantage here with the Diablo series compared to the Haitian is definitely from about 15 k an hour or 20 k an hour, that mid-range. It does like to pick up. And then, when you all of a sudden you hit around 35, 40, it's like, oh, it's still going. Whereas on the Haitian, then it sort of maxes out. So I think those that like speed will like this factor of the board. I think it's fast enough. We shouldn't be going any quicker than that.
Check back in 3 years' time. That's something that I guess the critics of Evolve have said. We've always had off-the-line power because we've had low gearing.
Yeah.
And they've said once it gets going, it doesn't have that same amount of power. And Average eSkate spoke about it. He's just got his hands on the Bamboo Diablo.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said all he wanted from us ever was a board that could hit 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And it picked up in the mid-range.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is it.
Does it all.
So that's until you ride it, it's probably going to be hard to understand. But from that 10 or 20 kilometer an hour mark, when you pull the trigger, that feels different to the Haitian and a hell of a lot different to a GTR. Yeah, especially if we've got the GTR owners out there and they haven't sort of made the next step to upgrade to the Haitian. They've missed a whole series of boards and then they jump from GTR, skipped Haitian, and then go to Diablo. They're going to love this. Yeah, that's going to be awesome. It's going to be a learning curve for them, but
yeah,
it's a board that will do them pretty much for a long time.
But okay, so you said it's going to be a big learning curve. Look, I agree to maybe tame the power and the speed if you're in Corsa mode, but sport mode is great. And eco mode, I hate to say it, I never use eco mode, have ever used it on any of our boards. On this board, it's brilliant. Like it's, yes, it does have a softer start, but again, that mid-range, all of a sudden it's there, it picks up, so you can actually use it like how Sport and what Corsa felt like on the Hadian. It's a beautiful speed mode to ride with, and if you are wanting to like get maximum range out of your board and you don't feel like just going nuts, ride an eco mode, because it still has a top speed. It still has the power in the mid-range. It's just a little bit softer at the start, and you might be in that kind of mood.
Eco mode was almost traditionally a beginner mode. Like, use eco mode to get used to your board and then, use the other ones once you're out riding, or just to conserve battery. The first time I rode eco on this, it was in a car park, so it wasn't that big, and I've given it a hit and I'm just seeing what it does, and I look down, I'm doing 46 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, it still gets up to top speed.
it's faster than the Hadian. It doesn't get there as quickly as a Corsa mode because it's not drawing the current, which means you'll conserve your battery. But if you're, say, commuting to work and you don't need to punch around cars and all that sort of stuff,
it's great.
It's got everything you need.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
eco mode.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of eco mode. Now, all those beach runs, I've been using it, and it's like you actually don't even need to ride Sport or Corsa. This is enough. So yeah, I remember when we were dialing in the power because it was Corsa mode was like the ball terror, and then you had to get the gaps between Sport and then what eco was. Trying to get the right balance between eco and what Sport was kind of challenging. And we had the discussions like, have we given too much here? But as long as the startup is nice and it has a nice soft takeoff, if you're wanting softer than that, that's what custom mode's for. Get straight into the Explorer app and start dialing the power back even further. So I think this is where the Explorer app is really going to come to life, and the app will be used a lot more by people. If they think those three standard settings, Sport, Eco and Corsa, is just too much, you could set something well in between each one of these. So
there's, I guess, a spectrum of power, acceleration power and braking power is now so big. We have the three speed modes that we thought are, a good even split. Yeah. But there's so much room in between all of them.
Yeah, to dial it in.
Mix and match. Like your favorite mode. Do you want to tell people about that?
Yeah, definitely. I like using full power. So you get maximum current capabilities, and then I would say about acceleration curve about number 5, and then braking about number 4. So you just tone those down a little bit, but you've still got max power, you've still got max speed and all that, and I find that is just really nice. I've even played around with the power between Corsa mode and Sport as well, and that's another one which is keep the braking and acceleration 5 and 4 still, and then bring the power down a few notches, and then it's just beautiful, really, really nice ride. The other thing too, I know we're talking about the board is faster, and it certainly is, and so there's going to be a lot of riders here who's like, I don't need to go that fast, but you don't have to use that speed. What you can also do is go into the options setting on your remote and apply the speed mode to it. So you can set it to whatever speed mode you want, 32 or 25, if you're worried about getting, out of your range, and then that's how you sort of control that.
Let's talk about range.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of confusion, I guess, because people don't quite understand batteries. So they've read it's a 12S4P, and they're like, it's the same battery. So a brief explanation of batteries, 12S4P means there's 4 in a pack, 12 in sequence, so 48 cells. So it is the same configuration of battery as the Hadian, but what we've done is changed the individual cell. Yep. Do you want to explain what we've done there?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's the same battery structure and size, and we've just basically swapped out the 4 amp hour cells that were previously on the Hadians for a 5 amp hour. So it's increased the current, it's increased the range capability, so the longer ride time. So it works it out into a 20 amp hour battery compared to the Hayden, which was a 16. We did have some moly cell batches as well while we were going through COVID and trying to, keep up with all the cell demand and all that. So we do have some moly cell versions out there as well on our boards, and that turned it into a 16.8, but not quite as big as what the Diablo is. And that's what we did on the Renegade. The Renegade, we threw that new battery into the mix, and good thing about this cell too is that not only does it have good capacity, it also has good power, great power. So if you want to throw a bunch of current at it, the battery cell can handle it. But we're stoked with it. It's a great choice. It's a great brand to be working with, and we think it's the right product to use within our Diablos.
Yeah, Samsung batteries, if we didn't say that.
Yeah.
No, sure. So it's super good cell.
Yep.
We have obviously done the range test on the doco so people can go and watch that full range test.
Yeah.
We sent Andy out to just see how far he could push this thing.
Yeah.
So we put him on the 97mm street wheels on the Bamboo Diablo.
Yeah.
And we told him to take it chill. We wanted to see what it could do on the higher end of the spectrum. But
let's look at taking it chill though. Like, you're riding on a flat footpath, and this board goes really quick. He would have been riding sport and eco most of the time, and like we talked about eco mode before, this thing still goes. And being in our fastest setup, you're going to get the most efficiency out of it. Rolling is great, less resistance, and to achieve top speed, you never will on a footpath like this because it's congested and there's people around. And so I did the ride as well. In the same setup, but I did it, and we didn't put it in the video, but and I remember I did it on a day where it was really windy in one direction, but when I was going back the other way, I had the wind behind me. I really think I could have got bigger, but I ended up getting 82 Ks with my 97 32mm setup.
Andy got 99.7 kilometres.
Yeah.
That's 60 miles range.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I remember when I did it too, my legs and feet, toes were numb. I just wanted to get off the board by the end of it. It was just, this is just too much. But I'd like to see a challenge put out there. I reckon I could get to 90. That's now that I've done this once before, and you just got to master the way you ride. Eco mode, I would ride that, hold a speed on a nice, when it's not a breezy day or anything like that, and just focus on, just getting roll resistance and keeping it simple. 100K challenge. That's what we got to put out there. We got to do it. Who can hit the 100K mark? Maybe we got to dangle some little carrot or something for it.
I think it'll happen. One of the French boys did 94 kilometres on the Hayden.
Right.
So
okay, they must have had how heavy was he?
I think he was little, maybe 60 kilos.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's doable. 100K challenge. We'll put it out there. We'll come up with a prize, and you got to prove it.
And then power. So I think we've pretty much covered that so far, but it's got a lot of power.
It has significantly more power than the GTR and the Hayden series. If you want to sort of compare, I would say sport mode in Diablo is pretty much the same as what Corsa mode is in the Hayden. So all our Hayden riders out there who are used to that power, Corsa mode, expect to feel the same when you're in sport.
And that's power.
And that's power. So then if you jump straight onto the Corsa mode and in the Diablo, it's up there. There's a lot of current going through the system. You get up hills that's not even a hill. It accelerates harder. Still smooth though, which that's what I loved about how he just dialed in that rawness into something a bit more manageable. But it's got all the power. It'll go hard off the line. It's more than enough, I think. What's next? You want more acceleration than that? I don't know, man.
We'll see. Where I really like this power, and we haven't touched on it yet, is of course there's a Renegade Diablo.
Yes.
So we went and did that range test with you the other day, and I was just on the grass giving it squirts, and it didn't even move because it was just spinning the wheels. Like, it's a lot of power. But in an off-road scenario, especially a board like that, where I love shredding the grass on it, when you're like already going fast and then you give it some and you feel it like start ripping the grass behind you, it's a good board to have that amount of power on.
Yeah, agreed. I love the Diablo Renegade. When we did that ride the other night through the inner city, and I was using it without bindings, and it was on the Surface Paradise footpaths at night. Beautiful board, rides well. Again, I was just riding sport mode. Don't need Corsa. It's enough. Sport mode still gets up to 50k an hour, but you've still got all that current capabilities. I can't wait to get this out. I can't wait for people to start talking about it, and watch the snowball effect start happening. And I think anyone who was on the fence, you've got to come to our demos. We're going to announce a demo schedule.
They'll be announced. So go to our Facebook page and you'll see a full Facebook event schedule of where you can actually go in and try one of these things.
Yeah.
And then we'll also, there's going to be reviews dropping as well.
Yeah.
So a bunch of guys are starting to get their hands on it, and the initial feedback is very good.
Yeah, great. Oh, I can't wait. I dare say we'll get a few people wanting to test this out. There's been a lot of hype around it, so just got to get people on it and see what they think.
So probably one of the biggest changes in terms of the physical hardware is the trucks.
Yeah.
So we've used the same trucks for years and years and years. The Supercarve 1, I guess.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome truck, but we went in, did a full redesign, and came out with a 2.0.
Yeah, that's right. And we weren't going to do it. Like we thought it probably needs a bit of a facelift. But as we started playing around with some of the shapes and the aesthetic look of it, then it was like, all right, so let's just dial it in just a little bit further. So we made it wider. What we loved about the Renegade series is that we used that axle that sort of pushed all the gearing out further, and it really improved the stability of the ride. And then so we took that axle and then we used that as the basis for the Supercarve 2. And then again, so now it's just widened the truck. It's moved the wheel further away from the belt cover, so there's no more tire rubbing ever on the belt cover. So that's a great improvement. But it looks killer. And the ride is completely different. Like, it's got a really flowy carve to it, but it also feels very stable at the same time. And I'm interested to know those who are right into that sort of flow state, carving, once they dial the right bushings and the feel that they like of the board and their trucks and how they like it to ride, I think they'll enjoy this.
It's a weird experience riding it for the first time because it's sort of the same but different. And you're trying to work out what's going on here. Like, how do I get this carve going? Because it's got the stability, but then the way you dip into your calves is like kind of different. So once you work that out, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't think they're not that much wider. It's not like a gigantic truck,
Yeah.
but it does make a difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. And there's also some slight geometry changes as well. So you'll notice too, compared to the Hayden series, the way the angles are between the arm and the base plate. The motors sit a little bit lower now, so they come down further from the deck. And the way it all meshes together, once there's load on the board, everything is just perfectly aligned. The carve, it's like when you have it dialed in, it doesn't feel as like full whippy. It feels more flowy. That's the only way I can sort of describe it. But then again, you can change the whole ride feel based on the bushings that you have. And like you did on the speed test, for instance, people say, oh, you can't ride fast on a double kingpin. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
I knew I was going fast and I knew I was going in a straight line.
Yeah.
So I just put hard bushings in there, cranked it up.
Yeah.
And I was going 60 kilometers an hour on urethane. And it wasn't even like a question of a little bit of wobble. I could have gone way
Faster.
Easily.
Yeah, that's it. And it all comes down to you just get the right bushings in there and just tighten them up, and you've got maximum stability.
All right, next up, the decks. Bamboo deck has changed.
It has. I think this is a great addition to what we've done here. It's a big improvement from the first series, Haitian bamboos. The deck is thicker, it's stronger, it's a little bit stiffer, and we've surface mounted the base plate now, so it doesn't have those slots. And what it's done is essentially it's lowered it by about 5 mil as well. And we knew because it was a little bit lower, we had to strengthen up the deck. We didn't want too much, sagginess in the feel of when you're riding, and that's one of the things that I didn't quite like about the original Bamboo Haitian deck. I feel as though at some batches were a little bit too flexy than what it should have been. Still, the deck shape, the mold, it's bang on. It's perfect. You've got the lock-ins and you've got the concaves. But now it's just got that little bit extra stability, but it's still springy. And I think you've just got a little bit more stability too, a bit more confidence in the carve and going faster on this board. It needed it because this board's powerful. It can go fast. So we needed to have the trucks and the deck to be able to handle that kind of power.
Yeah, the bamboo flexiness is always it's so much different depending on all the different boards, even between brands. And if people think I want a flexi deck, that doesn't mean you want a trampoline. Yeah. And I've ridden some other brands and I've jumped on this thing and it's like, whoop, whoop, whoop. Yeah. And the guy's bragging about it because he's like, look at the flex. I'm like, this is not good. Yeah. So it's got to match the actual ride of the board. And especially with that 5 mil lower, that probably wouldn't have worked with the original flex and street wheels. It would have been scraping. Yeah, definitely. So the flex on this is it's hard to compare it, but maybe the GTR, how, the flex is there when you're hitting bumps, going off stuff, and you get that enough flex to pop from carve to carve. Yep. It's not flopping around underneath you. That's right. Which is how it should be. Yeah, that's right. And plus, if you stand in the middle of the board, that's when you're going to get the maximum amount of flex. You've also got the option to move the base plates a little bit further apart too, if you want to increase that wheelbase and that flex. So the more you push them apart, the more flexor it's going to be, and again, it'll change the stability of the ride too. So those who want even more stability, that's what you can do on the board, which is cool. Also, a bit of a facelift to the grip tape on all three of the boards, really. Yeah. So the bamboo has changed. We've put a center clear grip tape strip down the middle. Yep. But then across all three, we've gone for a heavier grit. Yes. Which, more power, you want to be connected to the board. Yeah, and it looks just tougher as well. So aesthetically, it looks right, but you can really feel it underfoot. Yeah, you just feel planted, you feel locked in. And it looks mint, especially when it's brand new. Yeah, it looks tough. Yeah. So I think that's another little positive for everyone. What else do we have? So we've got new motor clips as well. We've got new motors. We got new motors. We can start there. Okay, let's start on the motors. Yeah, they're bigger motors. They're bigger cans. They're 3,500 watt. They're more powerful. Aesthetically, we've made a few changes. We've got in the rear casing, we've got all the little air vent holes now to stop any sort of debris getting in, compared to what the 63, 68s, they had larger holes. So it looks quite tough. Around the motor itself, it's got small little lines across it. It's more of a glossier finish compared to the knurling, which was on the Haitian motors, the 63, 68s. So yeah, it's a little bit longer. It looks tougher. Sounds amazing when you give it some. And yeah, it's more powerful. That's all I can say. It looks different, adds more power, sounds different when you give it some. We covered that in the documentary as well. It's not a matter of putting new motors on something and saying it's more powerful. It's a matter of looking at the entire electronic system. It's changing certain components on the controller. It's changing wires to handle current. making this system match. And that's what we've always done with all of our boards.
Firmware as well. That was a big one too. The firmware had to be all redesigned to match this motor.
So yeah, full system overhaul, battery, motor controller, and motors.
Yeah. Let's talk sound. I know I just mentioned it before.
Did you like that clip I posted?
It's true, mate. Like this board is probably our loudest when you give it some stick, and it sounds like a jet engine. It sounds great. Take off, hear it. But I got to say, at the same time, and this is a total contradiction, I feel as though the Diablo is our loudest board, but it's also our quietest at the same time. So it's got both ends of the spectrum here. And when you're just cruising on this board, it just sounds effortless. It's silent.
Well, it kind of is for the board system. Like if you're just cruising along a footpath at 20 kilometers
there's
an hour,
no noise to it.
It's not working. It's like, this is easy work for me.
Yep. But then when you give it some, she wakes up, and it's fun. So that's what I love about this board. It's really quiet when you want it to be, but loud, and gets angry when you choose to use it. But okay, back to the motors as well. We also, another little adjustment, we've got new motor clips, new to sort of retainers to keep that clip in there. The original, when we first brought this out on the Hayden series, it was mounted from the top down, and we had these little sort of teeth on the side which used to slot into the connector to keep it in there. We found some of these used to sort of come out when riding. So then we've changed it around. Instead of having it from top down, we now have it over the top, covering it, so it's always locked in, which is good.
With the motors, and they do play a role in this as well as the current capabilities, but the braking of the board. So we haven't spoken about that a great deal, but by far the strongest brakes that we've ever put out.
Yeah, that's right. So what we're going to hear when people get these in the market is like, wow, the braking strength on this is unreal. Completely different. And again, how this has all come about due to the new motor controller, the new components in it, the extra current that's allowed to get through the system, and it's improved the braking performance by a lot. So now you could be going down a super steep hill, 25, 26 degrees. You could just like put your brakes on and just cruise down safely. The wheels can lock up if you want them to. They can skid.
That's one of my favorite things to do, especially on grass or like a little bit of gravel. It'll like lock the back wheels.
Yep.
Enough to go into a carve and skid the back a little bit on concrete. Like that's how strong they are.
Yeah.
If you slam them.
Yeah, that is significantly stronger than what the Hayden is. It's so interesting. Like I've been working in the service department sort of last week here and there, and I was test riding a few of the boards, and it's I rode some GT boards, and I remember when we brought the GT out many years ago, and I was like, whoa, this is like so powerful. This is next level. And I remember we took it up the Baldwin Street in New Zealand. I don't know how it got up there. I remember when we did it though, it just limped over the line. And I went to use the brakes on it last week. I was like, where are the brakes? Are they going to come? And then it finally kicked in. And then you jump on this Diablo, and it's like, holy moly, it's come a long, long way since then. So anyone who's skipped a few series of boards, this is the one you want to get on.
The reception to this board has been pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, the feedback has been exciting. It's great. It's good for the brand. And it definitely shows that there's a lot of customers, who've been using the Haydens and GTRs for a while now, and they're looking for something different, looking for something new. So yeah, it's been well received. It's great. This is why we've got to get this demo schedule up so people can see and come and test it and see it for themselves. And
I have a sneaky feeling by the time the demo schedule gets here, though, batch one's kind of going to be gone.
Yeah.
So I think like we've sold more than half of the Renegades over in the US and almost all of them in the UK.
Yeah.
And
there's only 2 left in US.
Yeah.
But so we got to check up on our manufacturer partner at the moment, how things going there. Hopefully we can add some more onto the shipment. But they've been really popular. They've been going well.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the carbon Diablos too. Like,
Yep.
they're almost through there, I think, in the back half of what we have.
Yep.
So super cool. Batch 2 will be coming reasonably soon after.
Yeah, it will be. We're just going to continue manufacturing, and it's not easy to make these boards. Like, to get the componentry, they're all handmade. It's not like some massive robot that's pushing these out. We're doing our best, and we've just got to play it smart in terms of what's happening with demand. We just got to make the most of all the opportunities that sort of come our way.
Yeah, demand is shit hot. So
it has been.
Go.
Yeah, no, it has been. It's been great. It's been really positive, and I just can't wait for people to get on these and start talking about it. That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing, and there's going to be some interesting conversations, and we'll see where this takes us.
There's been a few people come out who we did the sneaky Haitian Diablo trick with. So in the documentary, if you haven't seen it, we dressed up a Haitian with Diablo internals and took it to some public group rides to let riders ride this crazy weird board that we made. It was a Diablo. Electronics anyway. And they've come out and they're starting to talk about what they experienced. And they're like, oh, it's crazy, it's this, it's this. So once we get that to the masses, I think, man, people are going to just be living for this hype, and then it won't be too long before they're at group rides and everyone can sort of ride them. Yeah,
that's right. And there's been a lot of hype on the power and the speed, and it's not all about that. Like, I mean, I started Evolve for the whole purpose of just the endless wave, the carve, being in the moment, and just enjoying the ride, and being connected, and we've still got that in this board, and that's what the Super Carve 2 was all about. So you don't have to use all this power. You don't have to, and the good thing about this too is that you can grow into this board. You can just stick to sport, eco, or custom mode, whatever you want. Avoid Corsa. You don't have to use it, but once your skills get better, then you could sort of branch out further. But I just want to say the carve is real on this board. It's a beautiful ride, and that's what I'm mostly stoked about. It's a good combination of everything.
Yeah, much like a high-end sports car. There is that big red button for sports mode, and people don't use it. They just have it because it's a good drive.
Yep, it's there.
Awesome. And you know what? That button's there if you do need it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's a good way to look at it.
You randomly pop up and there's a scooter dude next to you, or you have to get away from someone for whatever reason, or a dog. Dog's chasing you, flick it, whoosh.
Out of there.
If anything, I just want to thank everyone who supported the launch. All the customers out there who've supported Evolve for all these years, and who have backed this product. And I just want, they haven't even ridden it, they've seen it, and they've still supported us. I couldn't thank these guys enough. And I just want to make sure that we're going to get this product to them as quick as we can, and watch everyone be stoked with it. But it's just great to see.
And on the topic of you supporting us, the Renegade did come out only last year. And because it is kind of close to the system and not too many changes, we haven't said it yet, but there are going to be some options for those customers to be able to upgrade to the performance of the Diablo. Bear with us. We need to get some stuff sorted with the parts, but there will be that available for those customers. Yeah,
and the good thing about the Renegade, it is easy enough to update. 2 new motors, does need a new motor controller, needs a new firmware set, but that's really it. You don't need a whole new board. So
yeah, and then with the Diablos, you would be talking battery, motor controller, motors, and trucks. So it gets to the point where you should probably just sell it and upgrade that yourself.
Yeah. Sell the Haitian. This board is, I hate to say it, but it is a Haitian killer. It has killed the Haitian, but we did plan our inventory and stock levels for this, and it's onwards and upwards, I say.
And on that note, thanks guys for watching. If there's any more questions you have about the Diablo, drop them in the comments. Make sure you jump over to the socials and just check all the new stuff that's coming out for the Diablo. The YouTube channel is firing back up again. We got some speed tests, range tests, a bunch of R&D stuff that wasn't in the documentary coming out. So subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.
Awesome. Happy days.